The theme today is the 3 steps of true forgiveness. First of all, let's look at not true forgiveness, or what the Course in Miracles calls forgiveness to destroy. And this is the kind of forgiveness that we've been using forever, that everyone has taught and learned. And forgiveness to destroy is, you have done something, and I'm going to be large enough to forgive you. Or I will negotiate with you, I will forgive you if you meet my needs. And there are a few other forms. And the problem with that is that we make the error real. You have sinned, and we make the sin real, and then we're large enough to forgive. And in doing that, we actually don't forgive either ourselves or the other person. So Jesus has come up in the Course in Miracles with what he calls true forgiveness, where we let go of sin entirely. Because the sin is a construct, a mind construct that we've made up together. We made it all up. Essentially what happens is you see error clearly first, thus making it real, and then overlook it. Yet how can you overlook what you have made real? So true forgiveness is overlooking entirely. When you read A Course in Miracles, it seems like a lot of words, a lot of content. And at first glance, it can seem quite daunting, quite overwhelming how much information it gives. And you get so overwhelmed by all the words that it's difficult to get the core of its meaning. The paradox is that the more you read and work with these principles, the more you see the Course in Miracles is only saying one thing: undo what you're doing. Undo what you're doing, or remove the blocks that you have set up in your mind, and love and peace is returned to you. It's already in your mind, it's simply clouded over with our mental and emotional blocks. And Kenneth Wapnick found this one very short sentence in A Course in Miracles that describes this 3 steps so clearly. And it's something like, we must identify the cause, let it go, so that it can be replaced with what is already there. I'll actually read it. The sentence before, the idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world that you see, because its cause can be changed. This change requires first that the cause be identified. We are the cause. And then let go, so that it can be replaced. The first 2 steps in this process require your cooperation. So the first 2 steps are identifying the cause and letting it go. The 3rd step, does not require your cooperation. Your images have already been replaced. By taking the first 2 steps, you see that this is so. So it's like our job is to identify the clouds, remove the clouds, and then the sun is shining. And it was shining before we removed the clouds. We just simply couldn't experience it. So our first 2 steps is, I'm the cause, I'm putting the clouds there, I remove them, I can then experience the love that's already in my mind, in the mind. Okay.
What page number?
Oh yes, it's workbook lesson 23, paragraph 5 actually. I won't give page numbers because people have different editions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you said lesson 20?
Lesson 23.
Yeah.
Undo what I'm doing so that I can remember who I am. But as I said yesterday, what we have been doing, that's the wrong mind on mine, right? and my right mind. It's clever, huh? I have to do this looking in a mirror, and then, you know. We have been trying to identify the cause of my lack of love out there. You are doing this to me. You're making me unhappy. My parents made me unhappy. My birth made me unhappy. God made me unhappy. Whatever. The circumstance, the country, the politics, the religion, and on and on and on. We've always been looking within the ego script to find the cause. As I said yesterday, the cause is the decision maker, the one who's dreaming all of this. That's where the error is, and that's where we have to get back to. So, step one, I'm doing this to myself, is in the text. This is really the crux or the core of true forgiveness. If you get this one sentence, you get all of that. The secret to salvation is but this: that you are doing this unto yourself. It's your dream, it's my dream. No matter what the form of the attack, still this is true. Whoever takes the role of enemy and of attacker, still is this the truth. Whatever seems to be the cause of any pain or suffering you feel, this is still true. Doing it to myself. This single lesson learned will set you free from all suffering, whatever form it takes. So simple. I'm doing this to myself. And you could say this last sentence is a bit like that first sentence. I have done this thing, and it is this that I would undo. This is the whole Course in Miracles in one, eight words. I have done this thing, and it is this that I would undo. So now we've identified the cause. We've brought it home. How do we then let it go? No one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them. For not looking is the way they are protected. What we've done is we have somehow suppressed most of our darkness because it's so uncomfortable, and also because we want to stay exactly as we are, even though it's miserable. Our sense of self is our most precious possession. Even if you're a schizophrenic or someone really depressed, that is the self that you think is you, and you will protect that even to death. It's our most precious possession. So most of our darkness is unconscious. This is why rebirthing is so valuable. It brings it up to the surface. And this is why we are attempting to expose all our dark beliefs and private thoughts in our sharing sessions, or in one-to-one or whatever. So no one escapes from illusions unless he looks at them, for not looking is the way they are protected. There is no need to shrink from illusions, for they cannot be dangerous. We are ready to look more closely at the ego's thought system, because together we have a lamp that will dispel it. And the lamp is, of course, true forgiveness, the letting go. And since you realize you do not want it, you must be ready. Now really, this sentence is also very important. There's part of us that doesn't want this guilt, misery, depression. We have to see the lack of value before we'll let it go. Why would we let it go if we value it? Now the ego part of our mind does value it. But the decision maker, the witness, must see that this is not what I really want. And what I really want is peace and happiness. The dynamics of the ego will be our lesson for a while. So we will also, as a group, be looking at the ego for some meetings. For we must first look at this to see beyond it. Otherwise we get into denial. Bliss nini, seeking, the love, and lovey joy, and this stuff. And we're still carrying our backpack with us, with all our darkness holding us down. We need to throw the backpack on the table, open it up, and look, and see that there's nothing there. To see that it's an illusion. See that we've made it all up. For we must first look at this to see beyond it, since you have made it real. We will undo this error quietly together, and then look beyond it to truth. So we look at the darkness, and then see beyond it to the truth. This is our work. Yes.
There was a sentence like, together we have the lamp or something. We hold the lamp. Could that also be the Holy Spirit, that lamp, or?
That's a very good question, yes. Difficult to know what Jesus was actually referring to. It could be forgiveness, it could be the Holy Spirit. Yeah.
Could it be the willingness?
It could even be the willingness, to see.
Or the unity together.
Yeah.
Oneness.
Or the courage?
As Kenneth Wapnick would say, these are our mighty companions. David Hoffmeister says, these are my mighty companions. And who cares who's right? It's all the same. So it's very important that we see the cost. And the Course in Miracles talks a lot about contrast. We will not let go of something until it's painful enough and we don't see the value anymore before we will let it go. This is why we will notice sometimes on this journey, and I have and many others have, that sometimes it seems like it's getting worse as you're letting go of this stuff. You might have some very sharp peaks of intense loneliness or intense feeling of rejection, whereas before it was kind of numbed, kind of hidden and covered over with many layers, and now it's coming up for us to really look at it. I remember one day, 2 or 3 years ago, I had felt loneliness like I had 2 electric cables in my body for 24 hours, and it was the huge turning point of this letting go of feeling lonely. Quite extraordinary. So we have to see this contrast before we let it go. And once we do, once we see no more value, then we choose again. So we're looking at our darkness in our wrong mind from the witness, decision maker, with a willingness to listen to the other voice, the right mind, where the Holy Spirit is heard. And we're told that it only takes a little willingness. Before we have been focusing on the ego script, looking, trying to understand, trying to find meaning, and searching in all the wrong places. Maybe getting momentary lift, but it's not permanent because it's not the real solution. We're still fixing the effect. As we get back to the cause, which is the mind choosing it, which is us doing it to ourselves, the willingness to hear the other voice is all we need. Because now we're, I didn't even know there was a voice there, but now I can start listening. And then we start to have more and more intuition, more and more peace, more and more simply knowing what to do in every moment. A quiet mind always knows what to do because it can hear this loving presence in my mind. There are different ways of looking at the Holy Spirit. I've struggled with it a lot, I have to say. Even the word Holy Spirit has been difficult for me. Some people say that the Holy Spirit guides you to doing things in the world, but I actually feel that that is the opposite of what the Course is teaching, because if there's no world, then how could the Holy Spirit guide you? The way Kenneth Wapnick says it, and that's the way I choose to hear it, is the Holy Spirit is an abstract presence of love, the memory of God that we brought into the dream with us. And when we're listening to that, like when the sun is shining, we're able to make loving decisions here. And the love of God is shining in my mind. I will translate that presence into specifics here. So if I'm in my right mind and there's some decision to be made, I will make a loving decision if I'm listening to my right mind. That's the way Ken puts it, and that's the way I choose to share it. So, choosing again. We were choosing away from love, now we need to say no to that choosing. So it's a not no. I choose away from the darkness with my willingness to hear the light. And another very clever ego trick that we'll deepen into is that it looks like there are many forms of ego choice. Many different ways that we choose separation, like in anger or in defense or in judgment, needing to be right, and on and on and on. There's a long list that we'll look at later. But essentially all that we're really doing is choosing separation. Just using different forms of separation, but choosing separation. So there's only one error. So it's the decision-making mind choosing separation in all its forms. So we only have one correction, which is saying no to that and the willingness to hear the other voice. This is our only problem here, we're told. The only problem. We think there's millions of problems here. So our problem is choosing separation. So the way to word it in your mind, at least at the beginning, and this is the way I do it. So I say to myself, oops. Oops, there I go, choosing separation in the form of, for example, judgment. I catch myself judging, so I say, oops, there I go, choosing separation in the form of judgment. Now, you could say the word oops holds the whole content because it's gentle. It's not, oh, Christ, I've done it again. Oops doesn't say that. It's not, oh, why have they done it to me yet again? And on and on. Oops is, it's very gentle, it's neutral. It's a neutral looking. And as Maria read out this morning, forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing. It merely looks, waits, and judges not. So really there is no doing to it. We're very quietly observing what we're doing, looking at it with this oops gentleness, and then we wait. We wait for the experience in our right mind to come through, maybe in words, or maybe in something to do or whatever, but certainly a different perception. So it merely looks, waits for the other voice to come through, and judges not. That's really true forgiveness in one sense. So there I go, choosing separation in the form of judgment. I'm willing, and this is the choosing again, I'm willing to see peace instead. Or I'm willing to see this differently. Choose your own words at the beginning. It has to resonate with you. These are the ones that I like. There is even a lesson, I think, I'm willing to see peace instead of this. So in that saying, I'm willing, that's pointing from my wrong mind to my right mind. So that the shift, which is not something that we make happen, it's something that we allow to happen. Our willingness allows the shift in perception to come to us from spirit. So we do the first two steps. I look and I'm willing to let it go and hear the other voice. That's the 3 steps. And the third step is the being replaced by spirit. It's very simple. And then we experience the miracle.